Where does pain really come from? What is the explanation when tragedy strikes? Well, sometimes pain and tragedy come randomly to people just because we live in a sin-stained world. This isn't a perfect world. All of us have wrecked it by our wrongdoing, and so sometimes on the righteous, sometimes on the unrighteous, painful things just fall because that's the kind of world we live in. Sometimes it's something that we'll never understand on this side of eternity because there's something that's going on in the heavenly realms that we don't understand. I think if Job could have seen the backstory in the heavenly realms, it would have helped him through his pain in this case. Sometimes God has a greater plan to redeem things and use terrible things for His good. And I think Job is a great example of that. I mean, Job went through a terrible time of suffering, but for thousands of years, millions of people have been instructed on the law of linearity and the problem of suffering and evil as a result of that. But it's the wrong conclusion to believe that every evil thing that we experience is a curse from God based on your bad behavior. And Job is the first guy in recorded literature to understand this and to argue for it. But he wishes that he had someone to argue the case for him. He wishes that there was an advocate out there, a lawyer that would be on his side, somebody who saw all of Job's actions and his motivations, who would be an intermediary between him and God. This is what Job says, Job chapter 9. He's not a man like me that I might answer him. This is God. He's saying, God is not a man like me that I might answer him, that we might confront each other in court. But if only there were someone to arbitrate between us, to lay his hand upon us both, someone to remove God's rod from me, so that his terror would frighten me no more. Then I would speak up without fear of him. But as it stands now, I cannot. Job is yearning for an intermediary. Think about this. Someone who could stand between us and God. Someone who had some human and God characteristics that could put a hand on both of us. Someone who would remove God's rod, God's wrath from us. Someone who would take him into his presence with no condemnation. Sounds an awful lot like Jesus, doesn't it? And this is one of literature's first hints at Jesus coming. Aren't you glad that you live 2,000 years after Jesus instead of 2,000 years before Jesus, so that you can know that an advocate does live, does exist, does intercede, and did take the brunt of God's pain for you when he died on the cross for you? This is good news, amen?